Well, good morning, church. Today we are in Acts 21, verses 27 to 39. Paul has returned to Jerusalem and is honoring the customs of the Jews. And yet he's about to face an incredible challenge as his life's going to be threatened. Paul had a compulsion, a love for the Jewish people. Even though he would be called the apostle to the Gentile, Paul couldn't really imagine that Jews wouldn't respond to the message that God had brought through Christ. And so he wanted to go back to Jerusalem. He wanted to speak. He wanted to be a witness to the Jews. But when he gets there, and people hear he's there and they know his reputation, they go to seize Paul. And they do what worked with Christ, what worked with Stephen. They tell lies, hoping they're going to, pep up the audience, get them so mad and angry that they end up taking his life. And Paul's no longer a threat as they saw him to what was the Jewish traditions. And so they start accusing him. One, they accuse him of telling the people that they didn't have to obey Jewish traditions, which he didn't. Then they accused him of a big thing, which was allowing Gentiles into the holy place. Now, that was a very serious thing. If you know the court, the temple that was there was a court called the Court of the Gentiles. And if you were a Gentile, you were allowed to enter to that point, but you had to stop. If you went before that or beyond that into the place that was only for the Jews, it was considered a capital offense. And it was so respected that you couldn't do that. The Romans at that time have actually allowed the Jews, if a Gentile crossed that threshold, they could take his life without any payback from the Romans. Even if he was a Roman citizen, it was clearly understood that you could respect that and you wouldn't pass that. So when they accuse Paul of that, that's like a high, oh my goodness, how could he do that? They go to grab Paul, and really they want to rip him apart. And all of a sudden, the Roman soldiers, the garrison that's there, they hear the uproar. All they see is what's going on, and they understand there's some turmoil, and their job is to keep peace in the city. So the commander sends out the troops, and they basically go and take Paul. It's clear he's the center piece that they're fighting, and they pull him back, and they're taking him in chains. They're taking him really in custody, thinking he must have done some horrible thing, or this wouldn't have happened. Maybe he tried to cross. Maybe he was a Gentile, and he tried to enter into that place he shouldn't. And as they're bringing him, Paul speaks to the commander, and he speaks in Greek, which not everyone did. And when he did, it kind of got the attention of the commander. And he said that he was a citizen of Tarsus. And then he asked the commander, could he speak to these people? And he does. He allows them to speak. And I won't take that away, because tomorrow, again, you're going to hear an incredible message about what Paul says to the people. And I think what I really want to point out is Paul did this out of compulsion of love for his people. He wasn't angry with them. He wanted them to come to know Christ. And just as he was willing to die for the Gentiles, he literally was willing to die for the Jews. He was warned of the dangers of going back to Jerusalem by so many people, and yet Paul was compelled because he wanted his people, he wanted the Jewish people to clearly understand salvation and what was offered through Christ. He was willing to stand boldly. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never had my life threatened for my faith. I've lost some friends over my commitment and my faith. I've lost some business associates, but I've never had my life threatened. But I love it that Paul's drive is not a concern about his life. His drive is a compassion and love for those who are dying separated from Christ. He was literally heartbroken for the Jews who didn't understand the gospel and didn't understand that Christ was now the way to God. And I think sometimes we get angry at people who don't know Christ. We get angry at people who maybe have a political goal that we see as destructive or doing things that are immoral. And those things, they offend us. But are we hurt? Are we affected by the fact they're a person separated from Christ? And their greatest need is not to change their view of what they hold. The greatest need is to come to know Christ. Christ has the ability to change them from the inside out. And I guess it's a challenge for me, not to see those who don't know Christ as an enemy to challenge me or to be upset at, but rather someone who needs to know Christ. Guys, thank you for joining us today. Hey, tomorrow, great passage as you hear Paul really clearly share the gospel with the Jewish people who came to kill him. You guys have a great day. Continue on our deep dive tomorrow.